Brian, every time I go to a NASCAR race, I feel like I see a whole bunch of Newell coaches, and I'm seeing some stacker trailers here that I'm pretty sure I've seen at a NASCAR race before. What's going on, sir?
Well, we've always been big in motorsports, and there's a number of things that go into that. A lot of those guys are still raising families, and having that big of a coach with room for everyone is a big deal. We have on-the-track service, which helps them out a lot. And another thing that a lot of those guys mention is we have the ability to tow 25,000 pounds so they can pull their toys with them when they get there. There's some things that we do as we're building the chassis that make that possible, and that definitely draws a lot of that client in.
What's different about a Newell coach where you're able to tow 25,000 pounds?
So it's really one of the advantages of building your own chassis. You can use a solid enough superstructure where 4,000 pound tongue weight doesn't cause you problems, and you can work with companies to do what we've done here. See how this lower engine mount is also our HD hitch?
Yep.
What's cool about that is that if you just bought a hitch off the shelf, it would hang down below and it would drag on literally everything. So our engineers work with the engineers from the hitch company to build a combination lower engine mount and heavy duty hitch, so you get the ground clearance that you need, but you also get an extraordinarily robust hitch.
I noticed on this stacker trailer over here and that other one, they both kind of have like a matte color on it. What's going on with these trailers?
Well, that's a popular thing among the NASCAR guys. We're mixing gloss and matte colors. These trailers have been wrapped, but the coaches obviously are painted here. We're doing combination of matte and gloss. We're doing black wheels and black mirrors, and they just look really sinister, just like NASCAR guys like them.
Yeah, another one, this stacker I think we've seen around the NASCAR lots as well.
That's right.
Absolutely beautiful day here, and a lot of beautiful coaches. Now this Jeep looks like it'd be a good tow vehicle for our friends that have 1738 there, but
it's the right color.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is the other coach that matches. We don't know who it belongs to exactly, but I know I've been seeing it around the track a lot. What's some of the cool stuff you guys did on this coach?
So I really like the carbon fiber effect.
Yeah.
On a motorsports coach, that is just super cool, you know. And then check out these matte black wheels.
Oh yeah.
They match the paint job just perfectly, and again, looks so sinister, I think. Just
absolutely.
love the feel of this coach.
This and that stacker trailer together, what a good looking setup.
One of the things I really like about this setup, and you can kind of see it better than ever here, these bolts are what holds the motor cradle in.
Yes, sir.
So if it ever has to come back out, you unbolt that, take loose the turbocharger hoses and the fuel lines, disconnect the drive line. This section is made to be removable so that the turbochargers will clear, and this whole thing will slide out of the back of the coach on a forklift. That's a huge deal because you're never going to break down somewhere close to a place that knows how to take a motor coach apart. You're going to be miles away. Our guys can talk somebody through how to get this engine out, which hopefully is a conversation that takes place 50 years from now. But if it ever does have to come out, we've engineered the coach so that it does so without being disassembled, without having to cut anything. It just unbolts and slides out the back.
That definitely makes someone's life easier at some point. And one thing I'm noticing while we're sitting here talking is you got to be, what, about 6'2", or how tall are you?
6'2".
And, you know, the engine bay is very tall, and it takes up a lot of space, and it's easy to get to. Now, this is going to all get covered up when it's completed, but I think changing belts on this is probably a lot easier than a lot of other motorhomes.
It's a huge hatch, you know, that opens up right here, and you're literally standing this close to it.
Looking over here on this side, and we can start to see everything come together. You've got the valid slides in, and I know that your chassis is a steel structure.
Yes.
What type of steel do you use? What makes the Newell chassis so special?
So the thing about the Newell chassis, and this is a big deal. This is the conversation that everybody is having about chassis. Kind of the background on this. This is a bridge type chassis, which means there's heavy steel, C-channel laid sideways in the center with bracing on the sides. There's C-channels on the very bottom, and then each of these bulkheads is X bracing in between. That's what it means to be a bridge type chassis. So historically speaking, when I first came into the industry in the early 90s, everything was really built on a rail type chassis. 2 C-channels run the length of the coach, and that was what was responsible for the structural integrity of the coach. And what was happening there is, as customer tastes were changing and they wanted Corian countertops and diesel generators and 150 gallons of fuel and all the things that came with larger, more modern motorhomes, we were running out of the ability to carry the weight. And I'm talking industry wide. We were running out of the ability to carry weight. The average coach, say a 34-footer, had a single axle in the front rated at 14,000 pounds, a drive axle in the back rated at 20,000 pounds. You had 34,000 pounds of carrying capacity. We start coming to the shows with 37-foot, 102-inch wide bodies with, tile entryways and all these things that weigh so much. We had literally bumped up against what the industry was capable of carrying on that chassis. And then the thing that kind of changed it all for everybody, the bus conversions came on the scene in the mid to late 80s is when we started seeing them come around in any great numbers. And that changed everything because it was a unibody chassis. There was no chassis per se. It's this cage that all works together. And we started getting, in the Class A business, we started getting a lot of requests. When are you guys going to build your bus style chassis? And as a result, that's what the industry did. Everybody at some point or another, really all of the brands kind of changed over how they built their chassis to more of a unibody type chassis. And that was going great because it's very strong and it's very light, and it took a lot of the carrying capacity out of the equation and made a much more viable chassis. Then in 1994, as I recall it, Newmar came to a show with a slide out, and that threw a grenade in the whole program. We had just changed everything to accommodate the structural integrity being a part of the sidewalls. And now we're supposed to start cutting a hole in the side of this thing, and that just messed up everything. And there were various fits and starts. I recall coaches that you'd put the leveling jacks down and the windshield would pop out, and coaches that the crack in the shower stall wouldn't show up until you put it in gear, and this was all with our industry trying to put slide outs in a machine that was not designed for it. And right about that time is when I discovered Newell. They had been around forever. They've been building this bridge type chassis forever. I just became aware of them because I saw them at an FMCA show, and they had a 4-slide coach sitting out there, and I'm over here working for a bus converter, and we're still figuring out how to viably put a slide in a coach. And I walked into that 4-slide coach and saw the 8-foot ceilings and the huge the huge rooms, and I'm like, this thing is truly incredible. And so I came up here, and Carl Blade showed me through the factory, and this is where it all came from. It's this chassis. They never quit building this bridge type chassis. So Newell was figuring out how to do 4 slides on a coach when the rest of the industry was still figuring out how to cut a single slide in it.
Yeah.
Huge advantage for the company.
Well, and you guys have been able to continue to fine-tune everything, over the years. Looking behind you here, as you're talking, I'm noticing this floor, how thick it is. I think that's a 7-inch floor.
Yeah, 7 inches thick. And when we get the sidewalls on the coach, you'll see very, very thick, very dense sidewalls and roof on the coach too. It makes a huge difference in both thermal insulation as well as sound insulation. They're really much quieter inside.
I think we got another coach right there. You want to show us real quick what those sidewalls look like?
Sure.
Once they get, so this is kind of cool to see the progress. And hey, to tow 25,000 pounds, it's not going to come easy. So now this has got a little bit more. It's got the front and rear caps on it. Sidewalls have been installed at this station.
Designed to unbolt here and up the front, and this whole section comes down so that the engine can come out.
Yeah, and here's a look at that 25,000 pound tow hitch there, and let's take a look. So aluminum sidewalls too. Everyone else in the industry is using fiberglass sidewall that I know of. I don't know of anyone else using aluminum.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anyone either. This is a big deal for us. Newells have always been aluminum. And, going all the way back into the 60s, they've always been an aluminum coach. The relatively recent change, and I say relatively, this still goes all the way back to the, really to the 80s, but we have started doing fiberglass caps.
Oh, yeah.
And you just have to, because otherwise it looks like a bread box going down the road. You can't really do any style with an all aluminum coach. It's got to have some style to it. So we've been working with Porsche Design for decades in Austria to design these bodies. The gray parts that you see along here, those are the fiberglass pieces, the flares around the wheels and the caps and all that. The rest of it is aluminum, and that is a huge deal. You don't ever have to worry about a bad batch of fiberglass ruining your production. We've all heard the horror stories through the industries when that happens. It's a nice flat material. It takes paint very well, and it's also very strong and very light. So the whole superstructure of the coach is built out of aluminum too. We built this little panel. We had a homecoming rally not long ago, and so the guys in the skin line built this superstructure mock-up of our sidewall. This is the top hat channel I was telling you about.
Yeah.
The reason it's called that, if you look at the end of it, it literally looks like Abraham Lincoln's top hat. So this is the part that we can blow full of foam.
Yep.
And that way it's fully insulated, and then the marine grade plywood on top screwed to the flanges, and then we start doing the finishing layers, and that's what a Newell sidewall looks like. And then you end up with just this very, very dense, quiet sidewall.
That's got to be, you know, that's probably 3-inch thick or so.
By the time it's finished, 3 inches thick. Yeah.
Wow. And there's something about this foam that you guys spray in too, that this is not just your ordinary foam. What's
So closed cell urethane foam, it's being used in construction all the time now, and it does a really fantastic job of thermal and sound insulation.
now, is this roof structure the same, or?
No, actually the roof is quite a lot thicker because we've also got the sound deadening around the air conditioners themselves, which is about 4-inch thick dB reducing plywood, plus the superstructure of the roof itself. So it will typically be quite a bit thicker than the sidewalls.
It's not just aluminum. Here in your cockpit area, there's some steel up here, I believe.
Yes. This is called top hat channel. Most everything out there is built out of box channel, everything that I'm aware of, which is impossible to insulate. So you'll see coaches sitting outside with frost on them, and you can see every single frame rail melted in the frost. This stuff is open to the inside, so when we blow the urethane foam in, like this one is done, that fills that in. Then we fill in the fourth side of this top hat channel with 5/8 marine grade plywood, and we screw that to the flanges on either side of it, and that's what makes the density of these sidewalls so incredible.
Yeah, and so as I walk through, I see all of this different aluminum, and you can see the vertical beams and then horizontal beams as well. Is that all going to be aluminum, part of that superstructure?
That's all part of the superstructure.
So I know Newell hasn't always had a 25,000 pound towing capacity. Do you know for about how long you've had a 25K towing capacity?
So 2014 and newer, with earlier examples having an upgraded hitch. Like, you know, early on, a lot of people just towed a car sort of thing, so the coaches were really set up for that. But there were always examples in racing and so on where people would have an upgraded hitch installed on the coach that was up to capacity like that. But at least since 2014, standard from the factory.
So if someone out there wants to step up to a Newell coach, get that 25,000 pound towing capacity, who should they get a hold of?
My name is Brian Pitts. I would be happy to help you with that. My email address is brianp with an I, BRIANP @newellcoach.com, and I'd look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome, Brian. Can't thank you enough for sharing some great information with myself and the folks out on YouTube. I also greatly appreciate all of you out there on YouTube subscribing to the channel and liking these videos. I hope you're all having a great day. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching.